Hello everybody and welcome to PESA Presents on Underwater Geology and Topography. Today we're going to look into some features of the undersea, some geologic features, and a couple other related things as well. So now, why is this relevant? Well, over half the United States population lives within 50 miles of the coast, so that's an awful lot of people pretty close to the water. And with population density of shoreline cities being about 5 times more than the average, and with sea levels rising, well, this is pretty much a concern. So, what are the main components of the shoreline in the ocean, and what are some features in underwater geology? Now, here are some of the basic ones that we're going to cover a little bit more later. So, looking at features like, say, the continental slope, continental shelf, mid-ocean ridge, a few other places like that. Now, the continental shelf and slope, first of all. The continental shelf is the underwater edge of a continent. So if you picture, say, North America, for example, and go along, I don't know, the Atlantic coast. Now, the edge of what you can picture as being Florida really still isn't the edge of the continent or the edge of really any other close coastal state for that matter. It extends actually quite a bit out. And it goes from the coastline itself to the shelf break, which is the actual technical edge of a continent. So, the continental shelf is the underwater edge of a continent, the place between, say, where the land meets the water and the actual edge of the continent itself. The water depth there averages about 200 feet and its width is roughly 40 miles. And then afterwards, you have the continental slope, which is the inclined region from the shelf break to the ocean floor. Ocean floor itself is also known as the seabed, with its deepest part being called the abyssal plain. The sediments can be biogenous, which are from living organisms, cosmogenous, which are from space, hydrogenous from chemistry, or terrigenous, which are from land. Key features in here led geologists to understand mechanics behind plate tectonics, which is something that we'll get into later. So, some of these many features include hydrothermal vents, which were actually only discovered in 1977. Now, obviously, there were ocean water meets magma, but still, the bubbles that are coming out of them, that actually isn't the water boiling. Just, I still see today educational specials and videos where they do underwater filming and camera work and they describe it as the water boiling over. It's not boiling, it's actually gas. There are very, very unique ecosystems here with all different types of hydrogen sulfide gases coming out, unique microbes, unique plants, unique animals. And while the seawater temperature here can exceed 700 degrees Fahrenheit, those bubbles ain't from the boiling, they're from high pressure, really. So now the mid-ocean ridge and the forces behind it are what drive the movements of the continents. Now, the mid-ocean ridge is not really, well, most ridges are not really in the middle of the ocean. The name itself refers to the mid-Atlantic ridge properly, which is Earth's longest mountain range at 40,000 miles long. So all the continents are constantly moving. They're on top of molten magma within a range of the Earth's crust called the mantle, which is driven by convection currents in its upper portion. So you have the mantle with these convection currents that are very, very slowly moving around these continents into each other. Now they're hitting into each other, they're pulling apart, and the pulling apart, the spreading, is where the mid-oceanic ridge gets involved. So you have these convection currents forcing up magma and basically pulling these two plates apart, sort of pulling, pushing them, moving them apart. So here are some examples of zones within the ocean. So you're looking at the intertidal zone, the continental shelf again, our friend the seafloor, and a few of these photic zones. Aphotic zone, that is where light doesn't reach or where you can still see light over down here. And some examples of some organisms that you can or can't find where you can find visible light, or at least what humans would define as visible light. So here are some more zones within ocean depth. You're looking at the sunlight zone, which is where you can still see light readily, is the epipelagic zone. The mesopelagic zone is the twilight zone where it's getting kind of dusky color-wise. Bathypelagic zone is known as the midnight zone. That's where you don't have light reaching down. Abyssopelagic zone is the abyss from earlier. It's above the ocean basin and down towards the end of the continental rise. And the hadal zone is where you can find the really deep parts of the ocean, the trenches. It's a reference to the Greek god of the underworld, Hades. Now, ooze is a slimy mud in deep ocean that is roughly 30% the remains of microscopic organisms. You have calcareous oozes, which contains skeletons made of calcium carbonate. Now, they're divided into two groups themselves, or you also have silicia ooze, which are diatoms left, and radiolarian ooze. So, something that you may see a lot in paperwork or articles related to this is a term called the CCD, which is now this is calcium, the calcium carbonate compensation depth, which basically means the aquatic depth where the rate of calcium carbonate being dissolved is equal to its resupply. So between temperature, pressure, everything else, the calcium carbonate is still being dissolved in the ocean, but at the same time, it's also being resupplied, it's being recycled. So the CCD is the depth to where that rate is equal. Now, seismicity still occurs underwater, often at plate boundaries. This is a common cause of tsunamis, and you can and have very, very powerful earthquakes over here, with 2 of the 3 larger quakes recently being submarine. Well, you're looking at 1961 over the Chile coast and the 2004 Indian Ocean one, which caused that tsunami. So, seamounts and volcanic islands. Now, this is when a growing underwater volcano or seamount comes to the surface. That's when it becomes a volcanic island. Now, if that form then continues to erode below the surface of the sea and you form a coral reef on top, then it's called an atoll. Guyots are seamounts that were eroded completely flat. These are often found near hotspots or at plate boundaries like other volcanoes. And really, when you think about it, what is the tallest mountain on Earth? Is it Mount Everest, which is the highest altitude above mean sea level at just over 29,000 feet? Or is it Mauna Kea in Hawaii, which is the tallest mountain from base to peak at over 33,000 feet? So a submarine canyon is created by erosion caused by currents or by slump along the continental slope. Very, very few are on the continental shelf. Now you can compare this to a deep sea trench, which is mostly a fissure, and potentially 9,000 of these exist worldwide. Now, just a little look into some of the underwater features of our ocean and its basins. Thank you very much, folks, and enjoy your day now. Bye.